Hi, this will be my very first vlog, my very first video, um, and I'm not really sure what I'm going to do here, and I kind of have an idea of what my purpose is, um, but I know I have a lot of topics that I want to talk about, and so not just with one, but I'm going to start out with, my name is Stephanie, and I am 48 years old, and I'm Native American, and I've lived on and off my reservation my whole life. So I'm kind of like walking two worlds kind of person. Um, I guess what I wanted to start out with my story of kind of how I began my journey of self love and acceptance. I guess would be my first. It wasn't even love; it was just acceptance. And um, when I suffered, I had a lot of depression growing up. Um, and it was pretty rough, and I didn't really know how to, well, who does when they're young, like know how to understand it, or why I would lay in bed and cry at night and be so sad and painful, full of pain and stuff. And um, but when I lived in the non-native world where I went to school, my mom had left the reservation and remarried. And when I lived in the non-native world, I had friends. I had a lot of friends. I mean, a lot. And I had boyfriends. I had a good social life, but I never really felt like I fit in, and I always felt like I mean, I did look different, but that set me apart, and so I wasn't like the standard beauty. I didn't meet the regular beauty standards of that world, which was usually like blonde curly hair and um, whatever, just cute and little, and actually wasn't even that big, but I had dark straight hair, I had dark eyes, and felt I just felt like didn't fit in. And even though I had lots of friends, I did have friends and stuff. So, um, and then when I lived on the reservation every summer, I totally fit in when it came to looks and when it came to, and that's important when you're young, right? But I fit in that way, but I didn't fit in a way like, I didn't, like I would hang out with my cousins, but not really. I just lived in a different type of life that they lived in, and I talked different. I talked like a white girl, which I was told that a lot. I dressed different. I would come back to the reservation, and I'd be wearing clothes that like they wouldn't wear for like 2 years. So I was just a little bit kind of an oddball no matter where I was. I felt like that, right? And on the reservation, like every time I come home in the summer, you kind of have to start over with like making your friends and getting kind of in that circle of trust. And oh god, I was like the new girl every summer, and it sucked. And so some of those are some things that kind of like played a part in me never feeling like I fit in anywhere, and like I was always slightly outside of the group. Later, I think I would realize that I just part of that is because I think differently, and I'm my own thinker, but people don't get me, and so I felt like people didn't get me, and maybe they don't a little bit. I just always was always like just there's the center line. I was always like off of it, like just a little like 1 foot off, and so I never really felt like I really fit in, and so now I don't care. I really don't care. But anyway, so when I was about 20, yeah, 19 or 20, I had been going to college here on the reservation, and I just couldn't take. I was just so depressed. I was living with a friend. We were just partying and just barely making it through college, but doing a lot of partying and not and living with a bunch of teenagers. Really, we all lived together. My friend was a little bit older than me, and she had her own house, and we just partied, and we were very dysfunctional. And I was trying to go to school. I was the only one going to school from that house, and so anyway, so I moved back to Colorado. Oh, to Colorado. I moved back to the white world, away from my friends here and my family here, and but I was familiar with Colorado, and I I got really depressed, and I started seeing a counselor, and one of the things that came out of that was that I had to really learn how to like listen to my inner voice, and so um, and try to figure out what it was saying to me and if it was healthy or not. So I remember one day I was getting ready, and like I always did, like you always do, and you're getting ready in front of the mirror, brush your teeth, comb your hair, all that kind of good stuff, put your makeup on, whatever. And I remember leaving the mirror, and the last thing I said to myself was, "Ugh, you're so ugly." And it just like stopped me in my tracks, and because I've been having these conversations with a counselor, and I was like, why would I say that to myself? Like, that's really fucked up. That's messed up. So I literally backtracked, took a few steps back, and went back to the mirror, and I was like, okay, um, you're not going to say that. That's not going to be the last thing you say to yourself in the morning before you leave and try to like go out in the world and feel okay and be successful or whatever, feel okay about yourself. So I had to think of something nice to say to myself, and I really couldn't think of anything on my own. And so what I did was I just didn't have that inner dialogue that there were things about me that I liked, right? I mean, I knew that I had strengths, but um, I just couldn't think of them at that time. And so what I did is I picked things that other people would tell me, like my dentist would tell me, oh, you have such nice straight teeth. They're so nice and white. And my mom would always like, she loved my hair. It was really nice hair, like long and straight, silky, smooth, shiny, nice color. And so what I did is I would use those two things. Oh, and I was good at math. I always was good at math. I would use those things to start out like learning how to say something nice to myself. So I'd be like, okay, you have nice teeth, Stephanie. And that's what I left the mirror with that day. Maybe I said nice teeth and long hair and nice hair because I knew my mom liked my hair. And so that was like the beginning of really learning how to appreciate myself, appreciate the things about myself that were positive, and learning how to acknowledge them to myself. Like I literally looked in the mirror and said that. And I had to do that for a while. I had to use other people's things for a while, the things that they liked about me, until I could kind of figure out there's some things I liked about myself too. And um, back then, my eyes, they were a lot younger. They were like 30 years younger. um, and I liked my eyes. And I knew other people liked my eyes. My sister always liked my eyes. And then it was like, oh, I kind of liked my butt. You know how girls are. You like check everything out in your outfit. You're checking the front, you're checking the back, you're checking everything the side. And I decided that I did like my butt. um, and so what I would do is every morning when I'd leave the mirror, I wouldn't say things like, oh, God, you did all this work getting ready and you're still ugly. I would say other things like you have a really nice smile, or you have nice eyes, or your butt looks good in these jeans, kind of thing. And that kind of became, that was like the beginning of my journey of like just accepting who I was. And I was a lot smaller then too, but then I started using the word voluptuous to describe myself instead of fat. Um, and I was actually not very fat, but voluptuous just was a better word. And I was a little bit curvy, but um, so that was my journey on beginning to accept myself and love myself, and just feel good about who I was, and it was be okay with about feel okay about who I was. And then I had moved to Oregon for college, and that was like the last place I was going to go to college. I was going to finish there. And when I got there, I just had already started that journey for like 6 months. And so I was really used to kind of, okay, saying these things about myself and finding better words to describe myself, like voluptuous instead of fat. And um, so and people would call, like, sometimes I might be called bitchy, and I'd say, well, I'm independent. I have my own opinions and I have my own thoughts. And that's, if you want to say that's being bitchy, then that's your problem, not mine. And it took me a while to get there, but that was my journey of self-love, of starting my self-love. And it's never perfect. It's never a straight line. And You know, it's kind of like it's a cycle. You go back and forth and you kind of come around and you kind of get in a slump. And especially if you're suffering from depression, you know, that goes in cycles, or it did for me. But you get in that, you come around to that slump of like feeling bad about yourself again, and you have to kind of like pull yourself out of that hole that you're in, or that dark place, and crawl out of it and come out like, okay, I made it through that. So that's what I would do too. When I went to college in Oregon, it was like every semester I'd have like a week or two of just total depression. I wouldn't go to class. I just would stay home. I would feel like I was in such pain all the time. Like mental anguish is really what it was. Um, and I just didn't want to feel that anymore. And then I'd pull myself out, and I'd like drag myself out of that. It was hard to do. It was a lot of self talk, and um, to help myself feel better and see the positives. So, but it got easier over time, I guess. Well, I don't know if it got easier, but I figured out a routine and how to get myself out of there. And so um, I figured out like I'm kind of my own style of what I needed to do and what I needed to say and how it was. And then I'd spend like the rest of the semester like catching up because I missed so much school. And so that would keep me busy, and I'd be successful at it because I was a pretty decent student. But I caught, like, I did that for years. I did that. And after that, I moved back to the reservation, and I always did feel like more comfortable here, even though I don't know why I felt more comfortable here, because I'm not more comfortable here. Well, maybe I am. Maybe because of my family. This is my journey, see, trying to figure this stuff out. But I did feel like I fit in visual, like outwardly, how I looked, and I think I thought that boys liked me more here, and you know, boys were important at 22 years old, or guys were important at that age, and um, so I moved back here and continued my journey and trying to figure out, you know, who I am, and um, what I wanted to be, and how I was going to manage myself and my self doubt and my self love. Self love is a new word for me. I've been studying this stuff forever, but it was more about self acceptance than anything, um, most of the time. And I've just been kind of digging into self love, and which is a little bit different, but that's for another vlog. But that's my journey. That's how I kind of started like appreciating who I am and who I was at that age, at a young girl, you know, a young woman's in a young woman's mind, and trying to figure out like I'm worthy, and I'm not ugly, and I'm not a bad person, or whatever I thought about myself at the time, but mostly like learning how to be kind to myself. Um, Especially like for me, looking in the mirror and saying that is really, really helpful. So I would recommend it. Other people have different ways of doing it, but that's what worked for me. But anyway, that's my first vlog, and the journey of the beginning of my journey of being emotionally intelligent for myself, and being kind to myself and accepting of myself, and it's brought me to a lot of places, and it's brought me in a lot of on a lot of little adventures and challenges in life. But I'll talk about that later. So I'm gonna sign off. Adios.